Now, one of the big things coming out of this Trump administration, and one of the ones that I believe swung a lot of people to vote for President Trump this time, was the newly instated Department of Government Efficiency, which is, of course, headed up by Elon Musk. And it's been an important thing to go through and find out where the waste is happening. We are only a week and a day in President Trump's his term in office. And they've already uncovered some pretty wild stuff. As I said earlier, this is not going to be the most super family-friendly content. It's not bad, it's not dirty or offensive, but if you are watching with kids, I wanted to give you an update before we went there. But I'm going to let you first hear it from our new press secretary herself, because this was brought up immediately.
Why impose this pause with so little notice? Why not give organizations more time to plan for the fact that they are about to lose, in some cases, really crucial federal funding, at least for a period of time?
There was notice. It was the executive order that the president signed. There's also a freeze on hiring, as you know, a regulatory freeze, and there's also a freeze on foreign aid. And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. You know, just during this pause, DOGE and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOGE and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money.
So there you have it, $50 million of U.S. taxpayer money. And where was it going? It was going for condoms in Gaza. Again, $50 million. $50 million. There's not that many people, okay, in that area. So the fact that you were sending any is ridiculous, but $50 million just shows where the government waste is. And by the way, what have we also known for many years happens in Gaza? They use those for IED carrying, to make them into balloons. That is what one of the big uses has always been in that region, to carry them into southern Jerusalem and to go southern Israel, and you see what happens. Over schoolyards, over all of this. This is another one of those really shocking moments. It shouldn't be shocking to any of us, but this is what we're funding. We are funding, let's just take it on like its base level, like they aren't using them as bombs or as ways you could infiltrate. You are spending 50 million taxpayer dollars for birth control, if you will, for residents of Gaza.
That's right. And it's so infuriating that this is where the priorities of the Biden administration, as they took their support away from Israel and increased line items like $50 million in this way of our taxpayer money, it's so infuriating. We knew they were wasting our money. They knew that they were shipping money across the world for things that didn't make sense, didn't advance U.S. policy, didn't help keep us safe in any way. But when you think of the layers that you could go down on this, of how egregious the use of this money in Gaza could be, it's even more disheartening and disgusting. And that's why the work is so important to uncover these things. I know that this is just the first of many, but also it brings up other questions of corruption within the federal government over the last 4 years. Everyone knows that the reporting on the paper trails of the Biden family was sketchy at best. When it's a $50 million line item for one specific non-essential need in a war zone, of a population of 2.1 million people, many of those children, it brings up so many questions of who lobbied for that? Who got that in a budget and got that approved? Who profited off of your taxpayer dollars for something like this? And I think that's the next layer of DOGE and the Office of Management and Budget at the White House, of finding out what's really going on in the swamp and fix it.
Yeah, and what humanitarian even means. Because I don't think there's anyone in our listener base who thought when you heard the words humanitarian aid that this is what you were funding. You thought maybe you were funding food and clothing or water, clean drinking water. But no, that's not where they go. They go from spending $50 million of your money, by the way, again, taxpayer money, that went to, on the surface level, let's just say, basic birth control devices for men in Gaza. But the truth is, and what we know, because this has been since 2017, in as frequently as 2020 and so on, that these are used predominantly or very often for to carry IEDs into Israel. And that's been over schoolyards. That's been over a lot of different places where this has happened. You can see pictures of it, by the way. Go online. You can find them. It's not like this is some hidden secret agenda. This is what's happening. And I am very happy that the DOGE department has been able to quickly find these things, because it is not what the compassionate, caring American people want. Even those that want to fund humanitarian aid in Gaza, I assume this is not what you're thinking your money is going to. I know a lot of you probably do not at all, but when you hear this, it's got to make you go, this is why we're putting in these kind of stops and these kind of checks, because this is what's happening. This is where, as she said, a preposterous waste of taxpayer money.
And once again, you go back to this and you think, on the surface, best case scenario, they were so incompetent. One, they didn't know what it could be used for by Hamas in many different ways, including floating IEDs into Israel. On the surface, best case scenario, that's how incompetent they were. Worst case scenario, this is probably a very small fraction of a $50 million government grift that someone made a lot of money off of, that is a complete waste of your money, and it actually insulting, I feel like, to the entire world that maybe is supportive of Gaza.
Yeah, I think it's insulting to the people of Gaza.
Right.
To the people who are, who have been there, innocent civilians that have been caught in this. This is not the humanitarian aid, I promise you, that they want. They want, like I said, food, water, safety, shelter, maybe, because they're caught in the middle of a war. And it's understandable. But this is not what happens. As Will said, this is a grift.
Regardless of what the president wants to do, the left is going to try to sue to stop it. And the president has issued many orders on the freeze of hiring, the freeze of spending, while they go through and look line by line at where the taxpayer money is going. We know that a court last night already has put in place a temporary stay on his order on the domestic spending side. We're going to talk about some of the foreign spending here in a minute, but you know that they're just trying to find a plaintiff at this point to try and sue that as well. But this comes from individuals that are getting grants, organizations that get grants, that get money from the taxpayers, that are upset that there's been a freeze on spending. And when you go through the list of that, it's absurd. Some of the $1 million grants they're handing out like candy to groups in the United States for studies that are going to affect no one.
Right. Just true waste.
But they are now blocking him from implementing that spending, so forcing him to continue to spend the money. The ACLJ, our lawyers are already on it. I've seen memos already, and we are going to engage that and fight to ensure that the president and the administration can do the job the American people want them to do, cut wasteful spending, stop wasting our dollars on such ridiculous programs and studies that do nothing for anyone.